said the dusty Apache woman. "I only have $3. Let me wash at your ranch, cowboy." The sun was already high in the sky, its golden rays cutting through the dry, dusty air of the open plains. The land stretched endlessly in all directions, dotted with patches of wild grass, scattered rocks, and the occasional cactus. The wind blew gently, stirring up small clouds of dust that danced across the ground. On this vast and lonely landscape, a small figure appeared in the distance, moving slowly, carefully, as though each step required all her strength. It was an Apache woman, dusty and tired, her clothes worn from days of travel. Her long hair hung in uneven strands, tangled and dusty, framing a face that told stories of hardship and resilience. She carried a small bundle wrapped in an old cloth tied tightly so nothing could fall out, and in her hand she clutched a little pouch. Inside that pouch were only $3, her entire wealth after the long journey from her home. She had walked for days, following narrow paths that twisted through the plains, guided by the sun and the few landmarks she recognized. Her feet were sore, and her skin had become sunburned in places where her sleeves had slipped. She was hungry, thirsty, and weary, yet determination burned in her eyes. She was not asking for much, just a chance to clean herself, wash her clothes, and rest for a while. As she neared the ranch, she could see the wooden fence that surrounded it, weathered and gray, but sturdy. Smoke rose gently from a chimney in the distance, signaling life and warmth. The sound of cattle lowing and horses neighing reached her ears, bringing a strange comfort after days of solitude. She approached cautiously, not wanting to frighten anyone or impose. Her heart beat faster, a mix of hope and nervousness, because she had never asked strangers for help before. At the ranch, the cowboy was finishing his morning chores. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with hands hardened from years of work. His hat shaded his eyes from the sun, and the dust on his boots told stories of many long days spent on the plains. He noticed movement at the edge of the property and squinted to see more clearly. At first he thought it might be a stray traveler or a wandering animal, but as the figure drew closer he realized it was a woman, small and fragile against the vast landscape, yet walking with quiet determination. He watched as she slowed her pace, her movements careful and deliberate, as though she were weighing each step. Her bundle was light, but it was clear she had traveled far. When she reached the fence, she stopped, resting a hand on the wooden rail, her eyes scanning the ranch for signs of life. The cowboy approached her slowly, curious and cautious, as he always was with strangers. He had seen travelers pass by before, some looking for work, some looking for trouble, and he knew that appearances could be deceiving. "Hello there," he called out in a calm voice, keeping a respectful distance. "Are you lost, ma'am?" The woman looked up at him, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of weariness and hope. She hesitated for a moment, then spoke in a soft but steady voice. I am not lost," she said. "I have traveled far, and I only have $3. I was hoping maybe I could wash at your ranch, sir, just for a while. Please." The cowboy blinked, surprised by her honesty and the simplicity of her request. $3. It was a small sum, almost nothing, yet it carried a sense of dignity, because she offered it freely. She was not asking for charity or handouts. She was offering what little she had in exchange for a chance to clean herself and her clothes. That honesty, so rare in travelers he had met before, made him pause. She looked exhausted, dusty from head to toe, her clothes threadbare but clean where she could manage. Her eyes were bright despite the fatigue, and there was a quiet strength in the way she held herself. He could see that this woman had endured much, yet she had not lost her sense of pride or her willingness to work for what she needed. "Well," he said slowly, scratching his chin, "I suppose you could wash your clothes here. There's a creek just past the barn, and you can use the water from the trough. You can rest in the barn after that." Her face lit up with relief, and a small smile spread across her dusty face. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, almost as if saying it out loud might break the moment. "Thank you so much." As she moved toward the barn and the creek, the cowboy watched her carefully. She knelt by the water, dipping her hands in and splashing her face gently, the cold water refreshing her after the long journey. She began washing her clothes, scrubbing with care, treating each garment as if it were precious, because it was all she had. The sun glinted off the water, and the sound of the creek mixing with the distant lowing of cattle made the moment feel almost magical. The ranch hands noticed her as well. They had been watching from a distance, curious about the newcomer. At first some whispered among themselves, questioning why she was there and whether she could be trusted. But as they saw her work, how she carefully cleaned her clothes, how she moved with quiet purpose. She did not complain. She did not ask for more than she needed, and she showed a grace that spoke louder than words. The cowboy approached her again after a while, offering a small loaf of bread and a cup of water. She accepted with a quiet nod, grateful but unassuming. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, and drank the water as if it were a treasure. He watched her, thinking about how many travelers had passed through his ranch in his lifetime, and how few had carried themselves with such honesty and dignity. As the day went on, she continued her work, finishing the washing, rinsing her clothes carefully, and hanging them on a line to dry. She then turned her attention to herself, bathing in the creek, rinsing the dust from her skin, and letting the cool water wash away the fatigue of her journey. The cowboy noticed the transformation. She had come to him dusty, tired, and worn, but now she looked refreshed, as though the simple act of washing had renewed her spirit. By evening, she had finished all she could for the day. She sat quietly in the barn, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky with colors of orange, pink, and purple. The wind had softened, and the ranch was peaceful. The cowboy approached her once more, this time with a tone that carried warmth and respect. "You've done well today," he said. "I hope this place has been kind to you." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting gratitude and a quiet resilience. "It has," she replied softly. "Thank you for letting me come here. I did not want to trouble anyone. I only wanted to clean myself and my clothes. You have been more generous than I could have hoped." That evening, as she rested in the barn, she thought about her journey. She had traveled through deserts, crossed dry riverbeds, and walked under the scorching sun, all alone, carrying only her small bundle and her $3. She had feared rejection, feared that no one would help her, feared that she would be turned away. But here, at this ranch, she had found kindness, respect, and a small place to rest her weary body. The cowboy, too, reflected on the day. He had seen many travelers, but few had left such an impression on him. This woman, with nothing but $3 and her dignity, had reminded him of the power of honesty and humility. She had come into his life quietly, but she had already made a difference, showing that courage and determination could be found even in the most unlikely people. As night fell, the stars began to twinkle above the wide-open plains, and the ranch settled into a gentle calm. The Apache woman lay on a simple straw bed in the barn, listening to the distant sounds of animals settling in for the night. She felt a sense of safety she had not known for a long time. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, but for now, she could rest. She had crossed a vast and lonely land, faced uncertainty, and yet here she was, welcomed by a man she had only just met and given a chance to start again. The first part of her story ended not with triumph or grand adventure, but with a quiet moment of hope. A dusty Apache woman with only $3 had found her way to a ranch where she could wash, rest, and breathe freely for the first time in days. And in doing so, she had begun a journey that would change her life, and the life of the cowboy, forever. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the ranch, casting a golden glow over the wooden fences and the fields stretching into the distance. Birds sang from the trees, and the soft lowing of cattle carried across the air. The Apache woman woke early, before the cowboy and the ranch hands had begun their day. She wanted to be ready to help, to show that her presence at the ranch was not a burden but a contribution. She stepped outside the barn, brushing the straw from her clothes, and stretched her tired muscles. The cool morning air was refreshing after the warmth of the day before. She walked toward the water trough, filling a small bucket with fresh water. Her movements were careful and deliberate, showing a mix of experience and quiet determination. Even after the long journey and a day of washing, she carried herself with a calm dignity that seemed to draw attention without meaning to. The cowboy was already up, checking the horses and ensuring that everything was in order. He noticed her busy at the trough and paused, watching quietly. There was something about her presence that felt different from the usual travelers who passed through the ranch. She did not complain, she did not demand, and yet she radiated a quiet strength that made even the busiest ranch hands stop and take notice. When she had finished filling her bucket, she returned to the barn, washing the remaining clothes from her bundle and scrubbing each piece carefully. She hummed softly to herself, a gentle tune that seemed to carry the spirit of her people, the Apache. It was a sound that blended with the rustling of the leaves and the soft murmur of the animals around her. The cowboy felt a strange sense of calm wash over him as he listened, realizing that her presence brought a subtle warmth to the ranch. Later, she approached the cowboy with a small, polite request. "Sir," she said softly, I hope it is not too much to ask, but could I help with other chores? I want to repay your kindness, even if only a little." Her eyes were earnest, and there was a sincerity in her voice that touched the cowboy deeply. He considered her for a moment. Some ranchers might have turned her away, seeing her as too small or too weak to be of any help, but he saw something different in her. He saw determination, honesty, and a willingness to work. "Very well," he said finally. "There is always work to do. You can start by feeding the chickens and gathering eggs. Then you can help with the cattle later. Take your time and do it carefully." The Apache woman nodded, grateful, and moved toward the chicken coop. She carried a small basket and began her work, speaking softly to the chickens as she gathered eggs. She handled the animals with care, ensuring that each one was safe and calm. The ranch hands, who had been watching from a distance, whispered among themselves. Some were impressed, others surprised, but all began to realize that this woman, who had arrived with only $3 and a dusty bundle, had a steady hand and a kind heart. As the day progressed, the cowboy assigned her more tasks. She helped mend fences, carried water to the animals, and even learned to assist with feeding the horses. Each task was completed with care and attention, and she never once complained or asked for special treatment. The cowboy began to admire her resourcefulness. She asked questions politely when she did not know how to do something, and she remembered every instruction carefully. Her mind was quick, her hands steady, and her heart willing to endure whatever work the day brought. During a quiet moment in the afternoon, the cowboy approached her again. "You have done more in one morning than some people do in a week," he said, smiling. "Tell me, why have you traveled so far alone? It is not common to see someone so young, so small, come all this way by themselves." The Apache woman paused, her eyes reflecting both sadness and strength. "I had no choice," she said softly. "My family, they are gone. My home is gone. I had to find a place to continue living, a place where I could survive. I had only $3 left, but I had hope, and I hoped to find kind people." The cowboy listened silently, feeling a deep respect for her. Her words were simple, yet they carried the weight of hardship and courage. He realized that this woman had faced more challenges in her young life than most would ever imagine, yet she had not lost her humility, her honesty, or her willingness to work hard for even the smallest chance at survival. As the afternoon sun grew warmer, she moved to the cattle pen, helping to guide the animals and check on their health. She learned quickly, following the cowboy's instructions, asking questions when necessary, and observing the ranch hands to see how they managed the animals. She developed a rhythm, moving gracefully among the cattle, showing both care and confidence. Even the most experienced hands were impressed by her attentiveness and her ability to adapt so quickly to the work. During a brief break, she sat under a large tree near the barn, wiping sweat from her brow and drinking from a small flask of water. The cowboy joined her, offering a piece of bread. "You are stronger than you realize," he said kindly. "Not just in your body, but in your heart and mind. Most people would have given up long before reaching here." She smiled faintly, taking the bread with gratitude. "I did not give up," she said quietly. "I had to keep going. I had to survive, and I wanted to show that even someone with so little can still be useful and respectful." Her words left the cowboy thoughtful. He realized that the Apache woman had already begun teaching him something important about resilience, humility, and the power of honesty. She had arrived with nothing but $3, yet she offered far more than money could ever buy. She offered courage, patience, and a willingness to work. The rest of the day passed quickly, filled with chores and small tasks that kept both the woman and the cowboy busy. She repaired broken fences, fed the animals, cleaned the barn, and even helped in the kitchen, learning to prepare simple meals with care and attention. Each task she completed left her more confident, and each moment she spent on the ranch strengthened her connection to the place and to the people who lived there. By evening, the ranch was calm, the animals fed and settled, and the sun setting behind the hills cast long shadows across the fields. The Apache woman sat on a small stool near the barn, brushing her hair and thinking about her journey. She had faced days of hardship, traveled long distances alone, and arrived with nothing but $3. Yet she had found kindness and acceptance at this ranch, a place where her work and honesty were valued. The cowboy walked over, leaning against the fence beside her. "You have done well today," he said warmly. "You are welcome to stay here as long as you need. There is always work to do, and your help is appreciated. You may not realize it, but you have brought a sense of life and hope to this ranch." Her eyes widened slightly, touched by his words. "Thank you, sir," she replied softly. "I only wanted to survive, but you have given me more than survival. You have given me respect and kindness. That is worth more than any money I could offer." The cowboy nodded, understanding the truth in her words. She had come with only $3, but she had already given something priceless in return: her honesty, her courage, and her dedication. He felt a sense of pride in having welcomed her, and he knew that her presence would continue to have a positive impact on the ranch. That night, as the stars filled the sky and the ranch grew quiet, the Apache woman lay on her simple straw bed, reflecting on the day. She had learned the rhythm of the ranch, begun to understand the ways of the animals, and formed a tentative bond with the cowboy. Though her journey was far from over, she felt a glimmer of hope. She had arrived with so little, yet she had found a place where she could belong, where her work mattered, and where her spirit was recognized and valued. The first full day at the ranch ended not with grand events, but with quiet satisfaction. The Apache woman had shown courage, determination, and humility. She had offered her efforts in exchange for shelter and kindness, and in doing so had begun a journey that would change her life forever. And as she drifted into sleep, the gentle sounds of the ranch, the rustling leaves, the distant cattle, the whisper of the wind, carried with them a promise of new beginnings, hope, and the possibility of a better life. Days passed on the ranch, and the Apache woman settled into a steady rhythm. Each morning she woke with the sun, stretching her tired but strong muscles, and preparing for the work ahead. The chores were not easy, feeding the animals, carrying water, tending to the fields, and repairing fences, but she approached each task with care and diligence. With every passing day, her confidence grew, and her connection to the ranch became deeper. He had seen many people come and go, but few had shown the combination of courage, humility, and determination that this woman displayed. He often found himself quietly observing her as she worked, impressed by how naturally she adapted to the demands of ranch life. She learned quickly, remembering instructions without complaint and asking questions only when necessary. Her mind was alert, her hands skilled, and her heart full of determination. It wasn't long before the ranch hands began to notice her presence in a new light. At first, some had been skeptical, whispering doubts to one another. "Who is she, really?" they would ask. "She's small and alone. Can she handle the work?" But as days went by, those doubts melted away. They saw her patience with the animals, her attention to detail, and the care she put into every task. Even the horses, usually shy with strangers, accepted her presence and sometimes nuzzled her hands in trust. One afternoon, as the sun climbed high in the sky, the cowboy asked her to help with a particularly difficult chore, moving a small herd of cattle to a new pasture. It required patience, skill, and a calm demeanor. She watched him carefully, noting how he guided the animals with gentle gestures and a steady voice. Then, when he motioned for her to step forward, she followed his instructions without hesitation. To everyone's surprise, she handled the task expertly. She moved among the cattle with quiet confidence, her voice soft but firm, and her movements precise. The animals responded to her just as they did to the cowboy. The ranch hands, who had been skeptical, watched in admiration, whispering, "She's remarkable." "I didn't expect that." The cowboy himself smiled, recognizing that she had become not only competent but an essential part of the daily work on the ranch. As the days turned into weeks, the Apache woman became more than just a helper. She began to share small stories of her life and her people. Around the kitchen table during lunch breaks, she spoke softly about her childhood, about her family, and about the lessons she had learned on her journey. Her stories were simple, yet full of wisdom. The ranch hands and the cowboy listened attentively, drawn to her gentle humor, her thoughtful observations, and her quiet strength. She also began learning from them, absorbing the ways of ranch life. She learned to mend fences with efficiency, to handle the horses with confidence, and to understand the subtle rhythms of the animals' behavior. She asked questions when she did not understand something and listened carefully when they offered advice. In return, she shared insights from her own experience, often suggesting solutions or noticing things others might overlook. Her intelligence and intuition added value to every task, earning her the respect of everyone on the ranch. During quiet moments in the late afternoons, she and the cowboy would walk together through the fields. They spoke about the land, the animals, and the routines of the ranch. The cowboy learned about her people, their traditions, their respect for nature, and their way of life. In turn, she learned about his life on the ranch, his responsibilities, and the challenges he faced in keeping everything running smoothly. Through these conversations, a bond formed between them, built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. One day a small problem arose. A fence had broken near the edge of the pasture, and a few cattle had wandered too close to the neighboring property. The cowboy was away checking another field, and the ranch hands were busy with other chores. Without hesitation, the Apache woman took the lead. She gathered the stray cattle, using the skills she had learned and her natural calmness to guide them back safely. She repaired the broken section of the fence as best as she could, leaving it strong and secure. When the cowboy returned, he found the woman standing proudly by the fence, tired but satisfied. He realized in that moment how much trust he had developed in her abilities. "You handled that perfectly," he said. "I didn't have to worry at all. You've become more than a helper. You've become someone I can rely on." She nodded, a small smile on her face, feeling proud of her accomplishments. As the seasons changed, her bond with the ranch grew even stronger. She began to understand the land in a way she never had before. The feel of the soil beneath her feet, the way the animals moved, and the rhythm of the wind across the plains. She learned to anticipate the needs of the ranch, noticing small details that even experienced hands sometimes overlooked. Her presence became a source of calm and efficiency, and the cowboy often relied on her judgment without even thinking. But it wasn't just work that strengthened their connection. The Apache woman's gentle nature, her kindness, and her laughter brought warmth to the ranch. She cared for the animals as if they were her own, offered comfort to the ranch hands during difficult moments, and always had a soft word for anyone who needed encouragement. She transformed the atmosphere of the ranch, not through grand gestures, but through everyday acts of kindness, patience, and understanding. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of red and orange, the cowboy and the Apache woman sat near the creek, watching the water reflect the fading light. "You've changed this place," he said softly. "Not just with your work, but with the way you care for everything and everyone here. I didn't expect someone like you to come into my life, and yet I'm grateful you did." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting both humility and gratitude. "I am grateful too," she replied. "When I came here, I only had $3 in hope, but this ranch and your kindness, it has given me something far more valuable. I have learned, I have grown, and I feel like I belong somewhere for the first time in a long while." Their friendship deepened over time. They shared stories, meals, and quiet moments watching the animals. The cowboy began to trust her judgment completely, relying on her advice when making decisions about the ranch. She became a companion, someone who understood the land and the work as deeply as he did. Their bond was not built on words alone, but on shared experience, mutual respect, and the understanding that they could rely on each other. They had seen her arrive alone, with nothing but $3 and a small bundle, and they had watched her work tirelessly, learn quickly, and care for the ranch with dedication. She became a role model in quiet ways, showing that humility, determination, and honesty could earn trust and respect. The initially skeptical hands now sought her guidance and appreciated her insights, acknowledging that she had earned a permanent place among them. Through it all, the Apache woman remained humble. She never boasted about her accomplishments, never demanded special treatment, and never let pride interfere with her work. Continued to learn, to give, and to care, showing that true strength came not from wealth or power, but from character and determination. As months passed, the ranch began to feel like home to her. The barn, the fields, the animals, and the people became familiar and comforting. She no longer felt like a stranger passing through. She had found a place where her efforts mattered, where she was valued, and where her spirit could grow. And in turn, the cowboy realized that her presence had brought a sense of life, hope, and harmony to the ranch that he had never anticipated. One crisp morning, as the first light of dawn touched the fields, the cowboy found her tending to the horses. She looked up at him, brushing her hands on her apron, and smiled. "Good morning, sir," she said softly. "The horses are ready for the day. I checked their feed and water." The cowboy nodded, smiling back. "You continue to amaze me," he said. "I couldn't ask for a better partner in running this ranch. Your work, your heart, and your patience, it all makes a difference, more than you might ever realize." She blushed slightly, her humility shining through. "I only want to do my best," she replied, "and I am thankful that I can help. That is enough for me." By the end of Part 3, it was clear that the Apache woman had become an essential part of the ranch. She was no longer just a visitor with $3. She was a trusted helper, a friend, and a source of inspiration. Her honesty, resilience, and dedication had created bonds that could not be broken, and her presence had transformed the ranch in ways that went far beyond chores and tasks. She had found a place where she belonged, and in doing so, she had touched the lives of everyone around her. The days on the ranch flowed with the rhythm of work and the quiet beauty of the plains. The Apache woman had become a familiar and valued presence, moving with confidence among the animals, tending to the fields, and assisting with every chore that required care and attention. The cowboy had come to rely on her judgment and skill, knowing that no matter the task, she would handle it with diligence and thoughtfulness. One morning, as the sun rose, slowly painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, a sudden problem arose. A section of the fence on the far side of the property had broken during the night, and a small group of cattle had wandered dangerously close to the neighboring land. If the cattle crossed over, it could lead to disputes with the neighbors, and the cowboy knew he had to act quickly. The Apache woman was nearby, carrying water to the horses. When she noticed the commotion, she could see the cowboy's concern as he ran toward the damaged fence. Without hesitation, she set down the bucket and ran to help. "Sir, I can assist," she called, her voice calm but urgent. The cowboy glanced at her and nodded, recognizing the determination in her eyes. Together, they approached the fence. The cattle were restless, some grazing near the edge, others wandering closer to the neighboring property. The Apache woman stepped forward, moving with a quiet confidence. She spoke softly to the animals, guiding them back gently with soothing words and careful movements. The cowboy watched in admiration as she took the lead, handling the situation with a combination of courage and calmness that was remarkable for someone so small and relatively new to ranch life. Once the cattle were safely returned to the pasture, she began to repair the broken section of the fence. She worked quickly but carefully, ensuring that every post was secure and every wire was tight. Her hands moved with precision, her mind focused entirely on the task. The cowboy lent a hand where necessary, but it was clear that her skill and determination were the driving force behind the repair. As she worked, the ranch hands gathered around, watching silently, peacey. They had always respected her dedication, but now they were seeing another side of her: courage, quick thinking, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. Some whispered among themselves, impressed and slightly awed. "I didn't know she could handle something like this," one said quietly. "She's not just helpful, she's amazing." By the time the sun reached its highest point, the fence was fully repaired, and the cattle were safe in their pasture. The Apache woman stepped back, brushing dust from her hands and looking at her work with quiet satisfaction. The cowboy approached, smiling. "You've done more than I could have asked," he said. "You handled everything perfectly, and you did it with such care. I am truly impressed." She shook her head modestly, her eyes soft. "I only did what I could, sir. The cattle needed help, and I wanted to protect them. That is all." Despite her humility, the cowboy could see the pride in her posture, the satisfaction of a task completed well. The events of that morning spread through the ranch quickly. Even the neighbors, who had noticed the cattle nearing their land, came by later to express their gratitude. They were surprised to hear that it had been the Apache woman who had guided the animals back and repaired the fence. Her bravery and skill had prevented a potential conflict, and she earned their respect as well. Later that afternoon, the cowboy called her aside. "I want you to understand something," he said. "What you did today was more than just hard work. You showed courage, intelligence, and a heart full of care. You've become an important part of this ranch, more than you might realize." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting gratitude and humility. "I am honored, sir," she replied softly. "I only wish to help, to repay your kindness and to be useful. That is all I desire." As the days continued, other challenges arose that tested her abilities further. A sudden storm brought heavy rain and strong winds, causing minor damage to the barn and the fields. The Apache woman worked tirelessly alongside the cowboy and the ranch hands to secure the animals, repair broken structures, and protect the crops. She remained calm and focused, even when others grew anxious or frustrated. Her patience and determination inspired those around her, and her steady hands ensured that the ranch weathered the storm with minimal loss. During quieter moments, she began to notice small changes in herself as well. She felt stronger, more confident, and capable of handling challenges she would have once thought impossible. The work was demanding, but it brought her a sense of purpose and belonging she had never known. Each day, she learned more about the land, the animals, and the rhythms of ranch life. She also learned more about the cowboy, his values, and the responsibilities he carried as the owner of the ranch. One evening, after a long day of repairing fences and tending to the animals, the Apache woman sat with the cowboy by the fire, the warmth of the flames reflected in their eyes as they spoke quietly. "I have never felt this kind of trust before," she said softly. "To be given responsibilities, to be relied upon, it is new to me, and I am grateful." The cowboy nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You have earned that trust," he said. "It is not given lightly. You've shown strength, intelligence, and kindness. Those qualities matter more than anything else on this ranch. I am glad you are here." Over time, her presence became a source of stability and inspiration for the entire ranch. She not only handled the animals and chores with skill, but she also offered comfort and encouragement to the ranch hands. If someone was struggling or feeling discouraged, she would offer a kind word or a helping hand. Her calm demeanor and gentle humor brought a sense of harmony to the ranch, making it a better place for everyone who lived and worked there. Her bond with the cowboy deepened as well. They spent long hours together discussing plans for the ranch, sharing stories, and reflecting on life. The cowboy had come to value her insights and perspective, recognizing that she brought not only skill, but wisdom. She had a way of seeing things others overlooked, noticing small details that made a big difference. One afternoon, as they walked through the fields, the cowboy spoke about his hopes for the future of the ranch. "I have worked here for many years," he said, "but I sometimes worry that I cannot do it all alone. You have helped more than you know. You have brought a sense of balance and understanding that I did not even realize was missing." The Apache woman smiled gently. "I am happy to help, sir," she said. "I have learned so much here, and I am grateful to be part of this place. I feel at home. That is more than I could have hoped for when I arrived with only $3. As the seasons changed, her role on the ranch continued to grow. She became adept at handling difficult tasks, anticipating problems before they arose, and offering solutions that benefited everyone. Her courage and resilience inspired those around her, and her kindness and humility earned lasting respect. She had transformed from a weary traveler into a trusted and valued member of the ranch community. By the time the first snow of the season began to fall, the Apache woman had become indispensable. She worked tirelessly to prepare the animals for winter, repair structures, and ensure the ranch was ready for the cold months ahead. The cowboy relied on her judgment and skills more than ever, knowing that she could handle any challenge that came their way. One cold evening, as they both tended to the last of the chores, the cowboy spoke softly. "You have faced many challenges since you arrived here, and you have handled them all with courage and grace. I want you to know that you are respected, valued, and appreciated. You have made this ranch stronger, and you have made it a better place for everyone." The Apache woman looked at him, her eyes reflecting both humility and gratitude. "Thank you, sir," she replied quietly. "I only wanted to help. I never imagined that I could make such a difference. You have given me a home, a purpose, and a place to belong. That is more than I could ever ask for." As the snow fell gently outside, covering the fields and the rooftops in a soft blanket of white, the Apache woman felt a deep sense of peace. She had faced challenges that tested her courage, skill, and determination, and she had risen to each one. She had earned trust, respect, and friendship, and in doing so she had found a place where she truly belonged. The events of Part 4 demonstrated not only her bravery and skill, but also her character. She had shown that true strength comes not from size, wealth, or power, but from resilience, humility, and the willingness to help others. She had become a trusted and essential member of the ranch, and her presence had a positive impact on everyone around her. Through storms, broken fences, and challenging days, she proved that she was capable of handling whatever life on the ranch could throw at her. Her courage and determination had earned the cowboy's trust, the respect of the ranch hands, and a secure place in the community she had once feared would reject her. By the end of Part 4, it was clear that the Apache woman was no longer just a visitor or a temporary helper. She was a true part of the ranch, someone whose skills, judgment, and heart had become indispensable. She had faced tests of character and emerged stronger, more confident, and more respected than ever. The journey that began with only $3 had transformed into a story of courage, resilience, and belonging that would continue to grow in the days to come. The days on the ranch had become familiar, comfortable, and full of purpose for the Apache woman. She had arrived months ago, dusty and weary, with only $3 in her pocket, seeking a place to wash her clothes and rest her tired body. Now she was more than a visitor. She had become a trusted member of the ranch, a friend to the cowboy, and a respected figure to everyone who worked there. The morning air was crisp and bright, and the sun cast a warm glow across the fields. The Apache woman walked among the horses, brushing their coats and checking their hooves carefully. Each horse responded to her gentle touch, nuzzling her hands and standing quietly as she worked. The cowboy watched from a distance, quietly admiring her skill and patience. It was clear that she had become an essential part of the daily life on the ranch. That day, the cowboy had a special task planned. He wanted her to help him with the new herd of cattle arriving later in the week. It was an important job that required careful attention, knowledge of the animals, and the ability to think quickly in unexpected situations. The Apache woman listened intently as he explained the plan, nodding thoughtfully and asking questions to ensure she fully understood. Together, they moved through the fields, preparing the pastures and checking the fences. The Apache woman's calm presence helped keep the animals relaxed and the ranch hands focused. She had learned the routines, the rhythms, and even the subtle signs that told her when an animal was uneasy or when a task required extra care. Her attention to detail, her patience, and her quiet confidence made her indispensable. As they worked side by side, the cowboy spoke about his vision for the ranch. "I have spent years here, trying to make this place strong, productive, and safe," he said. "But I could never have imagined how much your presence has changed things. You have brought heart, wisdom, and courage. You've become a part of this ranch in ways that cannot be measured." The Apache woman smiled softly, her eyes reflecting humility and gratitude. "I am only doing my best," she replied. "This ranch has given me a chance to belong, to help, and to learn. That is enough for me. I never imagined I could find a place like this when I arrived with nothing but $3. Later in the day, the new herd arrived. The cattle were restless, unsure of their surroundings, and some tried to wander off as soon as they entered the pasture. The Apache woman moved calmly among them, speaking softly, guiding them gently, and using the skills she had learned to ensure they settled safely. Her movements were confident and precise, and the cowboy could see the animals responding to her guidance. The ranch hands, who had once doubted her abilities, watched with admiration. They saw how she handled every challenge with patience and intelligence, keeping the herd calm and moving efficiently. Some whispered among themselves, acknowledging that she had become more than a helper. She was a natural leader when it came to the animals. By evening, the work was done. The herd was safely in the pasture, the fences were secure, and the animals were calm and content. The Apache woman stood with the cowboy on a hill overlooking the ranch, watching the sunset paint the sky with colors of gold, orange, and pink. The land stretched endlessly before them, peaceful and alive, a symbol of all the hard work they had put into maintaining it. "You have truly become part of this place," the cowboy said softly. "Not just through work, but through your spirit, your courage, and your kindness. You arrived here with $3 and hope, and now you are a part of the life of this ranch. That is something money could never buy." The Apache woman felt a warmth in her chest. She had faced challenges, uncertainty, and fear, yet she had grown stronger, more confident, and more respected. The ranch had become her home, the cowboy a trusted friend, and the animals companions she cared deeply for. She had found a place where she belonged, and her contributions had been recognized and valued. Over the next few weeks, her role on the ranch expanded even further. She began assisting with teaching younger ranch hands, sharing the knowledge she had gained about animals, chores, and the rhythms of ranch life. She also helped prepare the ranch for the changing seasons, ensuring that everything was ready for winter and that the animals would be safe and comfortable. Her presence brought efficiency, organization, and calm to every task, and the cowboy relied on her judgment more than ever. One day, as she was repairing a fence near the barn, a young girl from the nearby town came by, curious about the Apache woman who had become a respected figure on the ranch. The girl watched quietly as the woman worked, amazed by her skill and confidence. After a moment, the Apache woman noticed her and smiled gently. "Would you like to help?" she asked softly. The girl nodded shyly, and the woman patiently guided her hands, teaching her how to secure the posts and tighten the wire. The girl's eyes sparkled with excitement, and the Apache woman felt a quiet pride in passing on what she had learned. Even in these small moments, she was making a difference beyond her immediate tasks. She was teaching others, inspiring them, and creating a sense of community that extended beyond the ranch. Her presence had become a source of learning, kindness, and guidance. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the ranch settled into a peaceful calm, the cowboy and the Apache woman sat together near the creek. The animals were quiet, and the sky was filled with stars. "I want you to know something," the cowboy said softly. "You have changed this ranch, not just with your work, but with your heart. You've brought hope, courage, and kindness that touches everyone here. You have earned a place that is permanent, and I hope you know how much you are valued." "Thank you, sir," she whispered. "I never imagined that someone like me, with only $3, could find a place where I belong. You have given me a home, a purpose, and a family. That is more than I could have ever hoped for." From that moment on, the Apache woman's place on the ranch was fully recognized. She continued to work alongside the cowboy and the ranch hands, but now she also shared in decision-making, planning, and problem-solving. Her opinions were valued, her skills trusted, and her presence appreciated by everyone. She had transformed from a weary traveler into a cornerstone of the ranch community. The bond between her and the cowboy grew stronger, built on trust, respect, and shared experience. They worked side by side, faced challenges together, and celebrated successes together. Their friendship was deep, quiet, and steady, formed through mutual respect and understanding. Each had come to rely on the other, not just for work, but for support, guidance, and companionship. As months turned into years, the Apache woman became fully integrated into the life of the ranch. She learned the land, the animals, and the people so well that she could anticipate needs before they arose. She became a mentor, a guide, and a trusted confidant. The cowboy could not imagine running the ranch without her, and the ranch hands looked to her as a model of dedication, skill, and kindness. Even the small town nearby noticed her presence. She had become known not just as a helper, but as someone whose courage, humility, and generosity of spirit had touched many lives. Her story of arriving with only $3 and a dusty bundle had become one of hope and inspiration, reminding others that honesty, hard work, and a kind heart can open doors and build lasting connections. One clear winter morning, the Apache woman stood at the edge of the fields, watching the first snowfall cover the plains in a blanket of white. She thought about how far she had come, from a dusty traveler with only $3 to a valued, respected, and loved member of the ranch community. Her journey had not been easy, but it had brought her to a place of belonging, purpose, and peace. The cowboy approached her, holding 2 cups of hot tea. He handed one to her and smiled warmly. "I think it is safe to say," he said softly, "that this ranch could not be the same without you. You arrived here with almost nothing, but you have given so much. You've made this place better, stronger, and more alive." She accepted the tea with a smile, feeling a sense of deep contentment. "I am grateful, sir," she said. "This ranch, this land, and the people here have given me a chance to grow, to belong, and to feel hope again. That is more than I could have asked for when I arrived with only $3. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the snow-covered fields, the Apache woman reflected on her journey. She had faced uncertainty, hardship, and fear, yet she had found courage within herself and kindness in others. She had learned new skills, built lasting relationships, and earned respect and trust. She had transformed her own life and had touched the lives of everyone around her. The story of the Apache woman ended not with grandeur or riches, but with something far more meaningful: belonging, respect, and the knowledge that even a person who arrives with almost nothing can create lasting change through honesty, courage, and hard work. She had found a home, a family, and a place where she truly mattered. Her journey from a dusty traveler with $3 to a valued and trusted member of the ranch was a story of resilience, kindness, and hope. It showed that no matter how humble one's beginnings may be, integrity, determination, and a willingness to help others can lead to opportunities, friendships, and a life filled with purpose and meaning. And so, the Apache woman continued her life on the ranch, surrounded by friends, animals, and a land that she loved. She had arrived with little, but she had given much, and in doing so, she had created a life rich with trust, respect, and belonging. The ranch had become her home, and she had become an indispensable part of its heart.